Now, you've told me that you first came to Hoddesdon in about 1928.
28.
Now, what was it like in those days, and where did you live? Do tell me about it.
I lived in Wormley after I married, but to start with I was at Norris Lodge in Lord Street with Mr. and Mrs. Soames Gardner. It was quite a strange life to me, having always been at home, and I had no experience, but they were very kind to me, and I was house parlourmaid, and I got on very well.
Where was their house?
In Lord Street.
In Lord Street.
There's now a row of houses where the ground was, but it was a very old house. The kitchen was very, very old. The drawing room was upstairs, a long room, more like an antique shop than a I was terrified of it. I had to go in, of course, and open windows and dust and that, and I was absolutely terrified. But we got on very, very well together, and I was there 2 years.
They were a nice family.
Very, very nice.
Were there children there?
Yes, there was Barbara and Celia, and there was a son, Morris, but I never met him because he was away abroad. And there was Margaret, the youngest one, was still at school. But they were extremely nice. Well, I suppose today you would call them very old-fashioned, but extremely kind.
Tell me about the kitchens. You said it was rather old-fashioned.
Well, it was a brick floor, cupboards everywhere, very old cupboards, a great big stove in it, which we still used, and but no convenience at all. There was a sink, a stone sink, not like the sinks today. But anyway, it was, well, when I was there it was 100 years old, so how old it would be by now I wouldn't know, but of course it's all gone.
Who was the cook?
Betty, that lived in Lord Street. Very nice girl. She was my bridesmaid in the end, and sadly she's gone. But we got on extremely well together, and I had very happy days there.
And you were living in Wormley then?
No, I was actually living
in the
Norris
house,
Lodge.
yes.
But I got married on April the 4th, 1931. And then I went to Wormley to live in this little bungalow, which had been a chapel, they told me, and had been made into 2 rooms. There was no convenience, toilet outside in the yard, but we were happy there. We had 6 years there, and then we moved to Hoddesdon. Well, Hoddesdon was very different to what it is today.
Now, before you leave Wormley, where was your little cottage? At the top of Mace's Lane?
Yes.
That's where it was.
There was a nursery joining it. In fact, I think the nurseryman had the bungalow. It belonged to him. And Mr. Hills it was. And of course I used to have a lovely garden because he used to put boxes of plants over on the wall for me.
That was very nice.
Yes, it was. I loved it.
Who was the gardener, you or your husband?
Me then. He always did the roses. He always kept those pruned and done. But the other part, that was me.
That was you.
Yes. He had an allotment. We used to have all our own vegetables.
Where was his allotment? In Church Lane?
No.
There was some down by what is Brookfield Farm these days.
Yes, somewhere
down
that
there.
way.
So he grew the vegetables?
Yes. So we always, when we moved to Hoddesdon, he had an allotment on top of Lord Street, and always had our own vegetables.
It's very important, isn't it?
Yes. I think it's such a joy. I used to have a little patch out the back here, but I think it's such a joy to go and pick your beans or pull your carrots, and
I think
fresh
so
from the
too.
ground.
They taste much better.
But Hoddesdon, they used to have the cattle market in the high street.
Tell me about that.
Well, it was a country town then. I think they used to come out from the farms and that. It was totally different to what it is today. But it was always a beautiful town. It was a wide high street and shops were lovely. You could buy anything
Tell me what day they had the market.
on a Wednesday.
And then they brought the cattle in.
Yes. There was not perhaps a lot of cattle, but there was cattle market, and of course it gradually faded out.
And there were other stalls as well, I
Oh
expect.
yes, oh yes, it was quite a big market. There was no town centre,
No.
not in those days. No, the base was there, but not the building, not the flats.
Now you mentioned the shops. Which shops did you use for shopping?
Well, it was everything. Goachers, the butchers. And when I lived at Wormley, Goachers used to come and deliver my weekend joint, £0.50, and that lasted until Tuesday.
Roast on Sunday.
Yes,
What did you have on Mondays?
cold meat,
Cold meat.
fried up vegetables, bubble and squeak as we called it, and always a steamed pudding.
Which was your husband's favourite?
Steak and kidney pudding.
Steak and kidney pudding. It's the best of all, isn't it? What other shops were there in Wormley?
In Wormley,
Yeah, when you were living there.
well, in Wormley there was just the grocers, Mr.
Mr. Meadows, was it?
No.
Never mind.
It's gone at the
Yes.
moment. And that was the grocers. Well, we were many doors away from the grocers. Blacksmiths, bakers,
Was that Mr. Larman?
Larman, yes. And not much else other than that.
When you went shopping in Wormley, you and your husband, how was it different than how it is today? Did you know people there?
Well, oh yes, you knew everybody. We didn't really shop in Wormley. We used to go to Hoddesdon. I mean, we'd walk it. And if you went on the bus, it was a penny.
Was it?
Yes.
And you didn't have to wait so long for the bus?
No, there was a very good bus service. Yes, and I can remember the old breaks, as they used to call them, charabancs, coming out from London on a Monday, and they used to go down to Rye House. They used to stop at the Queen's Head at Wormley and have a drink, and then go down to Rye House, and we used to call them the rent dodgers.
Really?
As
Why?
they came out from London to pay, instead of paying their rent.
I haven't heard about them before.
Haven't you?
No.
Oh yes, it used to be always a regular thing to see these buses. Well, weren't buses, they were charabancs.
Charabancs.
And open top buses, some of them, used to come out and spend the day at Rye House.
Then go back into London again.
Back into London again.
Most of the men in Wormley, where were they working?
Farm workers and the greenhouses, because there was a lot of greenhouses. I mean, Rochford was a terrific place. My husband worked at Rochford's when we married. In fact, I sent the library some little pictures of the hailstorm that we had while I lived in Wormley. Smashed the grass in the greenhouses. It was terrific. Didn't last long, but it did an awful lot of damage.
It would have done.
Yes.
Big
And I
hailstones.
had some snaps of it, and I gave them to the library, or the museum, I suppose.
That's right. They must have been very big. The hailstones must have been very
They
big.
were. I've never seen anything like it since.
Extraordinary.
It was terrific. I mean, to smash up the glass, it ruined the plants because the the young plants were just coming up, and cut them all to pieces.
What time did your husband have to get to work in the morning?
6 o'clock. Yes, 6 o'clock.
Did he come
till
home for
6
breakfast?
o'clock at night.
Oh, it's a long day, isn't
Yes,
it?
12-hour day.
What did he do?
Shilling
with
an
his
hour.
How much?
Shilling an hour.
Shilling an hour. And what about his meals? Did he come back for
well, when we lived in Wormley, yes, he could. But when we got the house at Walnut Tree Close in Hoddesdon, the rent, of course, was more. And he went over to Nazing to work to get the bit extra. They paid more at Nazing. And so, of course, then he was out all day. I had to pack, and we had evening meals then.
He took a packed lunch with him?
He always took lunch. I always got up and cooked him baked hot breakfast before he went to work. And I packed his lunch, and then he would have a meal at night.
And did he have to have Saturday work or not?
They take turns on a Sunday. They worked a rota, but there always had to be somebody there because of watering and that sort of thing.
No, they took it in
And
turns.
in the winter it was the steaming. I don't know if you know anything about that.
Not much, you tell me.
They used to steam the soil through the winter. They had big racks which they had to dig the ground, bury these racks, and then drive the steam through them to sterilise the soil. They don't do it now. But that was hard work in the winter, but it kept them going anyway.
Because it was working in the warm, I suppose, wasn't it?
Yes, because they went over to food then, you see, because Rochford's at first was all hyacinths and flowers and things like that. But they had to go over to food for the war, and it was cute.
Now, I think that you moved to Hoddesdon fairly soon after that, and your husband went to work in Nazing, didn't he?
That's right.
Why did he do that?
Well, for one thing, to get a little extra money for the rent. We moved into Walnut Tree Close, which was brand new, charming, lovely little house. We were very, very happy there. That was the first place I'd had a bathroom.
Ooh.
And I thought I was in Buckingham Palace. It really was a lovely house, and we were very happy. But of course he was away all day, so I thought, well, I must find something to do. And the war was on, and somebody came and said that her nanny and help had joined the forces. Would I help her out? And that was Mrs. Hanbury of Ware, you know. And I worked for her for quite a long while.
Where did she live?
In Hoddesdon. What's the name? An unmade road. The names evade me.
It'll come back to you, I expect.
Yes. She had 3 children, lovely children. And the little boy, it was very sad, the baby, I suppose he was about 3, and he was staying at his nanny's. She had a house on Hertford Road, and they put him to rest, and somehow he got a chair to the window and opened the window, fell out.
Ooh.
He was mad on lorries. You can imagine a little chappie, and of course he was killed. And that was a sad loss, terrible loss. Well, anyway, I had to go into hospital, so of course I finished at Mrs. Hanbury. She was extremely kind. She came and picked me up from hospital and brought me home. And
where did you go? To Hertford?
Hertford Hospital. And so that I had to rest for a while then. So I didn't do anything, but people were always coming, can you help me out with this, or can you help me out with that? And I'm so sad now when I think that they've all gone and left me behind.
Tell me, now your husband and yourself, you had Saturdays and Sundays free every
That's
week.
right.
And what did you do with your free time?
Well, Sunday morning I always cooked. He did like his Sunday dinner, and being out all the week, he could sit over that and enjoy it. So I didn't get to church, but I used to go Sunday evenings.
Which church was that?
Well, it depended on the weather. I wasn't always very keen on Hoddesdon Church, and I used to walk down to Broxbourne here, and then my husband would meet me out of church. And at one time he used to go to church with me. When we lived in Wormley he did, but of course work and that, and he didn't feel. So he'd meet me out, and then we'd go for a walk round back home again. So that was Sunday evenings. Sunday afternoons we got out very often, but he didn't like it. He liked to be at home. So
He liked to make the most of his Sundays.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you get a yearly holiday?
We used to have 2 holidays. The first holiday was spring. That was before the stuff came on in the greenhouse, and we always spent that at Ipswich visiting relations. And the second week we always had on our own, and we used to go out to Felixstowe, Bournemouth, Eastbourne, Isle of Wight, wherever we liked. We had lovely holidays.
Lovely. How did you get there?
Go by train. We never had a car. No.
Did you use the buses a lot or not?
Well, I used to walk a lot. I mean, even when we were at Hoddesdon, I mean, it was easy to get buses, but if I could walk, I enjoyed the walk. So,
Tell me about friends that you had in Hoddesdon.
Oh, numerous friends. I belonged to the WI until the war, and then I couldn't go down to Wormley. So I joined the Townswomen's Guild, and I had years with them. I was in the drama, I was in the music. We used to entertain Belmont, the people, and over 60 clubs and different things. And I used to have a lovely time, and I had lots of friends, which I still have now. I mean, there's one friend now phones me every week, but I'm afraid a lot have gone. Many have gone. But and then I went down to the meal service at Wormley, at Hoddesdon, and down there I started on vegetables and eventually finished up helping the cook, and I did 20 years down there. And after I moved here I used to walk down to the Pound Close and walk back again, not because I couldn't get a bus, but I enjoyed the walk.
I'm sure it kept you very fit anyway.
Yes, I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
It didn't do me any harm.
How many days a week did you go down and do the Meals on Wheels?
On a Friday. Always on a Friday. And then once a year we had a gathering, had a dinner together, and that was the only time that you met the whole community. And I was surprised the first time how many folks there was.
Tell me how you organised it so that the food didn't get cold in those days.
Well, we had to, when I first went, we had hay boxes, which were during the war, weren't they? We used to use hay boxes during the war. And then eventually it got to, they used to light them.
Were they little charcoal boxes, were they?
Charcoal, that's it. And we had cans in those days to put the food in with lids on, and when they came back, whoever was on the middle turn had to wait until they came back from delivery and sterilise them all. Had a big tank, used to heat with boiling water, and then they all had to be dried and put away, ready for the next day. So often it was 3 o'clock before you left the kitchen.
How many days a week did they prepare meals on wheels?
Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Fridays.
And how many people was it you were serving, do you think?
Well, quite a lot. I wouldn't perhaps know exactly how many, but quite a lot. But I mean, the meals really, we used to say, for elderly people, were almost enough for 2 days. And I mean, it was fresh cooked vegetables every day. They used to be delivered and go, Ridley's. Ridley's delivered the meat in those days.
Who delivered the meals to the people?
Volunteers with cars. They got a little petrol allowance, but not very much.
So they gave their time free?
Yes. It was all the only person I think was the cook that was paid a little. And I think it was something to do with her payment that it broke up at the end.
Oh, I think that's lovely. It was a very, very well-run service, I believe.
Oh, it was marvellous. It really was. I've seen 3 legs of lamb in the oven.
Goodness.
Yes. They had marvellous meals. Fridays it was fish as well. And they'd all loved their fish. Used to cook it there.
Fish and chips.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, you told me a lot about Hoddesdon. Was there a cinema in Hoddesdon in those days?
Yes, there was.
Tell me about that. Did you go to it often?
No, not very much. No. It was down Burford Street to start with, and then it was the new one up at the clock tower. I don't know what it's used for now. Bingo or something, I think.
Probably bingo, I think. What did most people do with their free time in Hoddesdon, do you think?
I don't know, really.
Did they go down to the river?
I think, yes, but, you know, when you live in a place and you've got the amenities, you don't use them, do you? It's people coming into the place that uses them.
Yeah, I think that's quite true. When you went shopping in Hoddesdon, because you were living there now, what was your grocer's shop where you went to?
Clement's, near the clock tower. And I used to take my order in and have it delivered. And now you've got to carry things. People don't deliver.
And who used to deliver it?
Well, one of the people at the shop.
On a bicycle?
Yes. Oh, yes, on a bicycle. When I was going back a bit now again, perhaps I shouldn't say, when I was at Wormley, used to get the milk delivered twice a day. Take your jug out too and have it put into your jug.
Was that a horse and cart?
Yes.
And so you could have your milk straight from the dairyman?
Yes. And of course when I was in London it was all horses. There wasn't very, very few cars then.
Was your bread delivered?
Yes.
In Wormley?
Yes.
What about Hoddesdon?
No, I used to go to the bakers at Hoddesdon.
Where did you go for your meat?
Goaters.
Was there sawdust on the floor?
Oh yes, yes. There used to be sawdust on the floor in the pubs too. Wooden floors with sawdust.
Yes, I suppose there were. Tell me about the pubs. Did you ever go there?
I don't know much about them. I mean, I might have been in one or two, but I mean, I wouldn't know really, but I can remember the boards and the sawdust.
Picks up all the spilt beer. Did you ever go into Hartford and Ware? And did you go out and about or not?
No, we used to go to Hartford and Ware. What we liked was to get on the bus and go to Enfield, actually. We liked that. You know, we'd have a cup of tea on a Saturday. This would be a treat in those days. And then come back on the bus.
Where did you
Look
shop?
round the shops.
Yes. What shops did you visit in Enfield?
I liked, what was the big shop in Enfield?
Was it Pearson's?
Pearson's. Yes.
Was that a good shop?
It was. I don't know what it's like now. I haven't been to Enfield for ages.
Did you tend to make any of your clothes, or did you buy them always?
Used to make them. But of course you get past that after a while, don't you?
Now, what did you do when you wanted to make yourself a new skirt? Did you have to go and buy a pattern?
Well, if you'd got a skirt that you liked, you'd take the pattern from that. But the skirts weren't like they are today.
Did you have a sewing machine?
Yes.
What sort?
I finished up with an electric one. I started with a pedal.
It was very modern to get an electric one.
Yes, I had that, but I gave it away at the end to one of the family. I couldn't lift it.
Too heavy. Thinking about electricity, when you first went to work, when you first came to Hoddesdon, there was electricity in the house, was there?
There was. I didn't have electricity at Wormley. I only had gas. But there was electricity, I can remember, at Norris Lodge. But I don't remember that it was anything extra, only lighting.
We take it for granted these days. We all take it for granted these days, electricity.
Yes, I didn't have electricity until I went to Hoddesdon, to the new house. And then, as I say, that was marvellous, hot water and bath. And
that was luxury.
Oh, it was.
Now tell me, when you were sick and ill, what doctor's surgery did you go to?
Broxbourne.
And who was there then?
Well, it wasn't Dr. Dimmock, but Dr. Dimmock came soon after. It was an elderly doctor wanting to retire, and we was waiting for Dr. Dimmock to come, and that was opposite Bell Lane, a big house, and the garage was the waiting room, and the surgery was just inside the house.
Was there a Dr. Roberts there?
No.
There wasn't.
No.
Yeah, I've got the wrong name.
No, elderly man.
What did you do? Did you just go down, or did you make appointments?
Oh no, you could go down then, just see somebody. And of course they've got a nice surgery now, and I'm still with them.
You're still with them?
Yes, I've been with them all these years.
Dr. Dimmock was here for many years, wasn't he?
He was a very nice man, apart from a doctor. He was a very nice man. He was a nice doctor, but not a doctor like you'd have today. What can I say? He was doctoring when I had my operation, and I know he came to see me, and I hadn't been up very long. I'd just come downstairs, and I'd got slippers on, and I always remember him. He said, "You can put those in the dustbin." He said, "You don't wear slippers." He said, "You wear your shoes." And I always remember that, and I never wear slippers about the house.
I suppose he thought it was better for your feet.
Yes.
Get fallen arches or something.
That's right.
What about the dentist? Where was your dentist?
In Hoddesdon. He's gone now, poor man, but he was a nice man. But I was a shocking coward over dentists.
You didn't look forward to a visit?
No, never.
Do you think it was more painful in those days than now?
I don't know. I don't know much about it now.
I'm just going to take you back a bit, because you mentioned going to Harford Hospital, and I want to know, was there a matron there?
Yes, definitely. And the nurses were all frightened of matron. They'd come and straighten you up in the morning, and now don't you dare muffle that bed up. Matron will be here around. Really put the fear of God into you.
And did matron always come round?
Oh yes, always.
And inspected you?
Yes, and she'd
put her
finger along, see if there was any dust anywhere.
And I suppose the hospital was spotlessly clean.
It was. It really was. And it's a pity that there aren't the matrons today.
What was the food like there? Do you remember?
Well, I can't remember much about it, but I think it was very good. I don't know what it's like today.
No. Well, one doesn't go there voluntarily, does one? Now, another thing I'd love you to tell me a bit more about, and that is, when you were working for the gardeners, what was the heating in the house? Because it was quite a big house, wasn't it? How did they keep it warm?
Open fires. We used to have to get up in the morning before breakfast time and clean it all up and get the coal in from down in the cellar up the steps and that, and keep the fire going during the day. And the cooking was by fire, of course, stove, old kitchen range. Hot water bottles at night.
Were they stone ones?
Yes, and also
Yes.
every night I had to get a tray and put certain pieces of silver on it, and it had to be put at the foot of Mrs. Gardner's bed. I thought at one time it was just to make sure that I was in, but it was a regular routine. It had to be done. And of course you had to turn your bed down, change the water from early evening until next, before they went to bed, and put hot water bottles in the bed, and it was quite a performance.
Was she worried about burglars, and that's why she had the silver?
No, whether it was something special I don't know, but nobody ever mentioned burglars. You didn't in those days.
I don't suppose there were so many of them.
No, you never thought about burglars. You go out and leave your house open and never thought about burglars.
You didn't bother to lock up?
No.
What about the police in Hoddesdon? Was there one or two policemen about the place?
All the police were next door, weren't they? Because the police station was in Lord Street in those days. So it was down on the opposite corner, almost next door to them.
Did you see much of them then?
No, not really. I mean, they had horses then.
Tell me about that.
Well, when I went, it was strange because Walnut Tree Close was built the side of Norris Lodge, actually. You went down, well, where you go down, you know where it is now, I expect. Well, there was the police station one corner, whilst Norris Lodge the other. Well, my bedroom up in the loft at Norris Lodge looked onto the mortuary at the police station. Well, when I moved to Walnut Tree Close, my front bedroom looked onto the mortuary. And there used to be the horses at back there. And I've seen some funny things going on at the back there. But it was strange. You didn't get away from it.
You must have always felt you were living half in the police station. You mentioned to me earlier, thinking about horses, that when you were very young, you went on a horse bus.
That's right.
Tell me about that.
I went from Greenwich to Woolwich Ferry on the last horse bus that ran then. They went over to motors after that.
Was it a double-decker bus?
Yes.
Did you sit upstairs or down?
Downstairs.
Was the upstairs open or was it covered?
Open.
It was open. So on a fine day you got a good view of London?
Yes.
Were you with your father or were you with your sister?
I was with my father.
And you went down to Greenwich?
Yeah.
Lovely. Now, what about wartime? I'm talking about the Second World War now. Because you were living in Hoddesdon then, weren't
That's
you?
right, yes.
What changes were there then?
Oh, quite a lot, really. Times were different altogether. Rationing, of course. I don't think there was much market during the war at Hoddesdon. Raids, we used to get the sirens. We had them when it first started and the big blitz at the beginning. We had them coming out from London on carts or anything they could get hold of with all their bits and pieces. And my husband was warden in those days, and he came home. I used to go down a neighbour's shelter because being on my own, and he came to the shelter and he said, "Can you come home?" So I said yes, and he'd got a party, man and wife, a man and two wives I think, or two women, in a cart, and they'd stopped and asked him did he know where the wives could get a night's sleep. They hadn't had any sleep, and they'd come out from London, and he came to me, fetched me out the shelter to go home, make up the bed and that for these two poor things.
Yeah.
And they were so grateful, and I said, well, I gave them a hot drink, and while I made their bed up, "Oh no, don't put sheets on, don't put clean things on, we'll be all right." I thought, no, not in my bed, you won't. And they were so grateful, and I said, now go to sleep, I'll be here. And I said, if anything happens, I'll wake you. And I sat up nearly all night. My husband popped back a time or two to see if I was all right. And they went off, they had a good breakfast and went off the next morning. And the men had slept in the cart that they'd got. They said they didn't mind doing that, it wanted somewhere for the women. So that was that.
They must have been exhausted.
Yes. Oh, they were in an awful state, poor things.
Terrible times.
Dreadful.
Were there many bombs in Hoddesdon?
Oh, quite a few, considering the size, of the place. The worst one, I think, was at the back of, between the church and the back of Walnut Tree Close. And I think there was 2 or 3 killed there. That was an awful business. That was in the middle of the night, and of course we were quite close.
Quite close to that.
Used to hear them go over and hope they were going further away, not thinking about other people.
Did you have a radio then? A wireless, as we call it?
Yes, we had a wireless.
So you heard the news?
Yes, which wasn't very good.
No.
No. No more than it is now.
No. It's always bad, isn't it?
Mm.
Tell me, looking back, what's the biggest change that you've seen in Hoddesdon in those days to now?
I suppose really the loss of some of the lovely old buildings that were there, and the shops of course have gone. It's totally different, totally different now. I don't know what sort of a town you'd call it now, really. It's not a country town anymore, and you can't say it's a shopping town because there's not the shops and that there. I think it's a pity it's gone down so far.
Do you find when you go in that you don't know people now if you go to the
Don't know
market?
many in Hoddesdon now. No. No, I go shopping each week to Sainsbury's, but I've often said, well, you don't meet anybody you know.
Do you miss that?
Yes, I like to meet people and chat, But no, I suppose I've outgrown them all.
Well, if I can say so, you're such a happy person. It's been a great joy to come and meet you. And thank you, Mrs. Pinner, very much indeed for telling me all about the old days.
I hope it's helped in some way.
Oh, people will be so interested to hear all your memories.